There will be blood. There will be
Yes.
blood. I know that's
Yes.
shocking to everybody that there might be violence in something that I write, but it just has to happen sometimes.
Yeah,
But
it's what we do. It's cathartic. It's
it is.
rather than us doing it ourselves.
Well, it's probably a good thing because, we'd be in jail right now,
Hmm.
actually. And I don't really want to be there after kind of exploring
No,
it in this.
no.
But, the other side of that is, we kind of talked about, how cathartic it is to get this stuff on paper and, how it
Hmm.
can, evoke emotions. Your work does that for me. I have to say, you
Thank
should
you.
have probably had a trigger warning on the front of your first book because I,
Yeah.
anybody who's gone through SEER, there are certain things that happen that you just like instantly, like the hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and all I could hear was somebody yelling at me in that really bad Eastern European voice, grab your right, Sal, and I'm like,
Uh,
here we go.
yeah, yeah. For many reasons, that's one of my regrets, is having not put a trigger warning somewhere within those first few pages, because there's a lot of stuff that I expelled into those that first novel in particular, um, that people have told me, friends, other veterans, like, I really liked the book, man, but I had to put it down for a while. I was like, yeah, I know, I'm sorry, we forgot to put the trigger warning in.
Well, that's actually a good thing. It's a good thing for all of us to be able to get that. And that's a huge compliment to you that you were obviously hitting the authenticity note to have everybody go, whoa, yeah, I felt that.
It's very important to me. It's like I will spend hours researching just to get like one chapter right, one paragraph right, because I just don't. The idea that some guy in the backwoods of Kentucky would call me out and be like, that guy would never do that, and I'm like, shit.
It's inevitable in our world.
Jeremiah, I didn't convince Jeremiah in the backwoods of Lexington, and
But it was probably
damn it.
Jeremiah the third who's been there all his life, and so has all of his family. So yeah, you got to make sure you hit those correct tones, otherwise
Hmm.
they catch you.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it is still entertainment. It is still fiction, but you want to be able to immerse somebody in the story so much that there's nothing that's going to yank them out of it. And
Yeah.
so you can tackle themes and get into things that you might not otherwise be able to without a few beers in you.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
um, for origin story, I mean, it goes beyond just, the a serial killer origin story, but
Yeah.
that it is
Well,
a serial killer origin story.
and that was one of the questions that I had for you, if I may,
You
was
may.
was the research that you did on your side, because not only is it serial killer tendencies, there's enough of them that have been cataloged now where they have their certain tells that are somewhat unifying amongst them all, and then the differences, which are also fascinating. But you deal in particular with this very strange psychological phenomena here of head trauma resulting in massive personality shift. And so that was part one that I was fascinated with, was where did that deep and dark turn down your Google search lead you in terms of
Yes,
this,
yes, it
and
was it
like,
was it was totally Google. I
yeah.
swear, it was all Google.
Yes, yes. Did you hear that,
So,
NSA? It was
yep, I
Google.
swear I have an alibi.
But yeah, like can talk to me a little bit about, where you started with the serial killers part, but then how you related it into, and where you went to get such convincing detail on the personality shift aspect, because I thought that was fascinating.
So it's all real, and I think
Yeah.
that's what makes it even more fascinating is because I took some artistic license with crafting my character, obviously, but
Sure.
everything that happens is real.
Hmm.
And I stumbled across it via a BBC article.
Oh,
They
okay.
they had an article about female psychopaths,
Mm.
and like we all are, you flip through the channels and there's a serial killer documentary on. You're going to stop. We
Right.
all do it. We can't help it. It's a compulsion.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I clicked on it and I started reading it. And as it turns out, there is an entire fledgling field of study looking at how women are psychopaths and how it differs from what we know from men.
Right.
And they actually have Facebook pages, they have forums, they have like almost like a support group where these female psychopaths get together and they talk about the things they've done, their experiences, how they feel about it. They're very open about it because they're psychopaths. And so they really have no reason to hide their little
but I'm guessing they're not
they're not serial killers.
Well, I was gonna say they're not in the criminal element yet. They might be, diagnosed or showing tendencies, but they haven't, because I would imagine that's a very detrimental operational security posture to put all your criminal activity into an online Facebook forum.
Unless you're going to be the next Zodiac killer who's going to taunt the police or Jack the Ripper. I mean, there is some documentation that shows that there are certain serial killers that really get into this. So the fact that these women get together and they talk openly about, the hearts they've broken, the people they've hurt, and it is on that kind of spectrum. It's not so much on the I kill everybody. So they may be.
It's not criminal, but maybe immoral, something like that.
Yeah. So on the ethical side of it, the moral side of it, even just our general societal ideas of what's right and wrong, they're on a totally different spectrum.
That's wild.
It is. But the fact that they have like this kind of support group where they can talk to other women who are on the same spectrum as they are was really fascinating.
That's why. So are you just like a fly on the wall looking at that stuff? Or are you the founding member of the group?
I will maintain deniability on that, but no.
Well, you know what I find fascinating about that is just the fact that it's actually in existence, because from what little I know on the subject, is that the predominant theories have just been that, like, a female psychopath to even especially to a criminal level is an aberration. It's a one-off, and it's just, no, men are the crazy ones. The women are the ones that keep us grounded, which is true, of course. But I think the idea of this emerging research saying like, no, there's actually a little more gender equality in the psychosis side of things than we had previously thought. The women are just better at hiding it. Like, I find that very fascinating.
It is a theory. It is a theory that, all psychopaths reside on a spectrum, not just women, but women, because it shows up differently. It makes them almost their own case study, which is what I founded this on. This, like, the whole origin story concept. After I read that, I thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. We were driving to Memphis to go to a book signing for Mark Greaney, and as I'm driving, I had one of the lines in the book, there are several instances where you get to see or read the confessions of Elise before she lost her memories. And one of those, when it talks about Joseph Campbell, that line jumped into my head and it would not let go. I was fascinated with the idea of kind of turning the hero's journey upside down and making an origin story, very hero's journey like, but for an anti-hero, for a villain.
Sure.
And so that's what I played with. And once that kind of got in my head, I couldn't let go of it. And the problem, of course, is how do you get somebody to root for a serial killer?
Yeah. And which I was going to say is like, okay, this is a cold-blooded murderer, but you have the personality shift. So there's something there. And so now you actually are feeling remorse, or some sort of emotional pull where you're rooting for Elise a little bit, and then you find out the causation of, what led to her and who she was targeting as part of her killings. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, no, like killing people is bad, but okay, I could get down with that, like, that's okay. And so again, you pulled it off in how do you make people root for a character that you shouldn't root for? Speaking this that was something I did in college in one of the few creative writing classes I did. it was just like write short stories, and you could just write about whatever. There was like no guidance, and then you would just sit around and we would read the stories to the class, and then they would get critiqued, and that was like the whole format. But I knew somewhere deep down that I wanted to do, novel writing in the future. So I started like giving myself personal challenges. And one of them was, can I get the class to feel sorry for a character that they should have no earthly business feeling sorry for?
I like
And
it.
yeah, and I called it, I based it off a dream I had. I called it The Execution of Darth Vader, because the dream I had was that at the end of Jedi, the Rebel Alliance actually captures Vader and puts him on trial and then puts him to death that way. And it's like, imagine if Vader had lived and he was, kind of showing remorse, and the people were actually feeling sorry for. So I created this whole character who had like asthma, and so he sounded like Vader and he breathed that way. But he ended up on death row being executed, but you feel bad for him at the end of it, right? Like this is a guy that shouldn't have ever been lethal injection, but and
Well
yeah,
done.
it was fun. It was good.
Well,
Like,
I applaud your choice in nerddom. And and speaking of your short stories, this is something I wanted to ask you about.
no,
All the short stories you have on your webpage.
yeah.
And that is awesome. Are you still doing that? Are you still just like genning up short stories and posting them?
No, so I kind of been like writing full length novels since junior high, I want to say. I was writing 300-page plus stories.
Yeah, but
And
when you can write like 90,000 words in 90 days, yes, show off.
yeah, it happens. Wait till I tell you about the next challenge. Um this industry's crazy. But the the short stories, like, I kind of got away from the books, and I realized, when I started seeing if I could actually make a go of it, of being a published author, I realized, wow, my writing is not to the level where I can get a fully published novel the way I thought it was. And so kind of went back into that same mode from that college story that I just told, of like giving myself challenges to kind of hone the skills, and it was fun too. It was a hobby, but it was like, let's see if I can write a science fiction story. Let's see if I can write a historical fiction, and I would just jump around doing these. I wrote a story about the end of the world, told from the
As we know it.
perspective. Yeah, well, yeah,
Sorry,
but
REM just jumped in my head as soon as you
right.
said that. Sorry.
This was it was the end of the world told from the perspective of a man's beard.